Reprise de débat. Resuming debate. The honourable member for Desnethé, Missinippi, Churchill River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate the member from Prince Albert this morning, who's done a great amount of work on this file on behalf of our party. Also, as he's mentioned, he's the member from my neighbouring riding, and he has been a tremendous support of encouragement and support for me as I've gone on this journey. I want to thank him for that. It is indeed a privilege this morning and an honour to stand in this House today for my first speech representing the people of Desnethé, Missinippi, Churchill River. I am very grateful for the trust the people have shown in me, and I commit to do my very best to represent each and every person for every moment of time they see fit to grant me the opportunity to be here and to serve them in this place. From my nomination in December 2018 until the election on October 21st, our campaign was a fabulous opportunity to get to know many people in this vast riding, and I will cherish that experience forever. My wife Lori and I continue to be thankful to the many people, some who worked tirelessly during the campaign to provide me the opportunity to serve in this House. I would be foolish to begin mentioning names, as I'm sure I would inadvertently exclude someone. But I know that each of you know who you are, and to each of you I say thank you today. I will be forever grateful for the support that Lori and my entire family have been to me on this journey. Kent and Rebecca, Mac and Hannah, Nicole and Washington and Alex, thank you for your constant support and encouragement. Lori, your commitment and sacrifice may go unnoticed by many, but it will never go unnoticed by me. I honestly do not know how anyone could serve in this place without the unwavering support of their family. Finally, I would be remiss if I did not point out that the highlight of the campaign for me was becoming a grandparent for the first time on October the 8th.
Good job.
For those who are not aware, Desnethé, Missinippi, Churchill River is basically the north half of Saskatchewan. In fact, it is 52% of Saskatchewan geographically. It is the second largest riding in the 10 provinces, and its approximately 70,000 residents are spread over 342,000 square kilometers. Just for reference, the country of Germany has nearly 83 million people spread over a slightly larger 357,000 square kilometers. As my team and I traveled over 25,000 kilometers during the campaign speaking to people, one of the common messages I heard was the need for Canada to get our fiscal house in order. I believe that because of my experience as a partner in an accounting firm for nearly 30 years and my service as mayor of the city of Meadow Lake for nearly 8 years, voters sent me here to this place to be their voice and to hold this government accountable for their wasteful spending. I feel very fortunate to have built a great team of people both here and in Meadow Lake, my home community. They are credible, they are capable, they are competent, and they are committed to working hard to represent the interests and to bring forward the concerns of all of the people of northern Saskatchewan. We know we have much to learn, but we are prepared for that challenge. Being appointed the Shadow Minister for Indigenous Services in November was a tremendous honour. It is a welcome opportunity to be part of an incredible team of people working on behalf of all Indigenous Canadians in addition to those I serve in northern Saskatchewan. My years of coaching minor hockey and my time as mayor, working with my immediate neighbours from Flying Dust First Nation, have taught me how First Nation and non-First Nation communities who have relationships built on trust can work together to find solutions to benefit everyone. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to say that when I set out to seek the nomination for my party, one of my first endorsements was from Chief Jeremy Norman of Flying Dust First Nation. I believe that is a testament to the positive relationship we have built over many years. I am personally excited in my role as Shadow Minister to have the opportunity to continue building relationships with Indigenous communities across Canada and to continue working to understand the challenges faced by these communities. But Mr. Speaker, we are here today to talk about a trade agreement. The Conservative Party of Canada is the party of free trade. It was under Prime Minister Stephen Harper that Canada signed a record number of trade agreements, providing our Canadian businesses with unprecedented access to markets around the world. We have long supported free trade, and we will continue to support a free trade agreement with the United States and Mexico. However, We cannot just blindly support a free trade deal for the sake of supporting a trade deal. We need to take time to make sure it is a good deal for Canadian businesses. We must do our due diligence and examine all aspects of this deal. After all, this is a deal with Canada's largest and most important trading partner. Unfortunately, as has been mentioned earlier already, this government has withheld some important information from us, like the economic impact analysis, and this has hindered us from adequately scrutinizing this deal to this point. Mr. Speaker, it seems to me that Canadians have every reason to be a little bit leery of this new NAFTA. We only need to look at how this government has mishandled very important trade issues for the farmers in my riding. Throughout the campaign, I heard from canola and pulse crop producers who over the past couple of years have had to deal with the failures of this government on the international scene. I think specifically of pulse crop exports to India and canola to China. Mr. Speaker, these are real issues and challenges for the farmers in my riding. As we consider the legislation before us today, I would also like to highlight something that I think is missing from this agreement. I'm not aware of any agreement on softwood lumber being included in the new NAFTA. This is a significant issue for our forestry sector. I know we often think of BC and the workers who are suffering extreme hardships there due to this government's failure on this file. My colleague, the member for Kamloops Thompson Caribou, spoke very capably on this issue in this House on Tuesday afternoon when she pointed out that over 24 mills have closed in British Columbia while this government has focused Western diversification funds predominantly to the major urban centres of Victoria and Vancouver. But let me share a story from my own riding on this. My riding in Saskatchewan also has a very significant forest industry. There are 2 lumber mills, an oriented strandboard mill, and a pulp mill, all within a few miles of my small community. I am sure you can appreciate the number of direct and indirect jobs and the economic spin-off that this creates in a number of the small communities in that area. In question period in December, I highlighted one of these companies, North Sask Forest Products. This is a sawmill that supports over 400 direct jobs in the Saskatchewan forestry sector. It also has the highest proportion of Indigenous forest employment in Canada. North Sask is a 100% First Nations-owned company whose profits are directed to the 9 bands that make up the Meadow Lake Tribal Council. The profits from North Sask Forest Products are funds that are used for core programs like housing, education, and health care. This would also include suicide prevention programs, which unfortunately is a very significant challenge in these same ownership communities that I speak of. As I pointed out in December, since 2017, North Sask has paid over $10 million in softwood lumber tariffs. That's $10 million of lost dividends that could have been paid to the ownership First Nations. Mr. Speaker, can you imagine the amount of services that could have been provided to the people of these 9 small communities with $10 million? Mr. Speaker, there are many stakeholders affected by this agreement. They're looking for the certainty that comes with knowing they are getting a fair deal so they can make good business and good investment decisions. That is why I personally look forward to reviewing this deal in detail and contacting many of the businesses in my riding to ensure that their success will not be impeded as a result of this trade agreement. Mr. Speaker, I want to close by saying I consider it an incredible honor to serve as a Member of Parliament, and I will never take that privilege for granted. Thank you again to all the people of Desnethé, Missinippi, Churchill River for putting your trust in me. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I can start off by just acknowledging and expressing appreciation in terms of just the amount of support that has been given towards the agreement. Seeing yesterday, for example, the Conservatives, the NDP, the Greens, recognizing the importance of this agreement to all Canadians was really quite encouraging. I listened to my colleagues' comments in regards to the Indigenous community. And one of the things that I think that we really underestimate is just the potential of Indigenous entrepreneurs that are out there. And it's going to be those entrepreneurs, the ones that are looking at exporting into the future, getting these secured markets, This trade agreement will help those entrepreneurs, which is one of the faster growing communities across our country, is going to do a great deal in terms of benefiting entrepreneurs in general. And I'm wondering if he could just provide his thoughts in terms of the secure markets and the benefits of today's entrepreneurs and tomorrow's entrepreneurs going forward.
Member for Desnethé, Missinippi, Churchill River.
The member for his question. It is my understanding there's no secure market for the forestry industry in the United States at this time. And I would also comment that during my campaign, I talked a lot about opportunity for all in the Indigenous communities in my riding. And what I meant by that, Mr. Speaker, is that the creation of great jobs is one of the very significant solutions that we have of many of the challenges facing northern Saskatchewan, in my riding in particular. If we can provide people the opportunity to have a great job, we give them some economic stability, we give them some self-worth and fulfillment that comes with having a good job. But what we also provide in northern Saskatchewan with good jobs is hope. And what's lacking in northern Saskatchewan is the hope that comes with having opportunity. And Mr. Speaker, I spoke many times that the suicide crisis we face in northern Saskatchewan is because of a lack of hope. If the young people in northern Saskatchewan can look to the people they look up to, look to their parents, look to their big brothers and sisters, look to the people they respect, and see them succeed by being part of the industry in northern Saskatchewan, they have a hope. And because of that hope, they don't have to consider suicide as an outcome.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague. I'm wondering, in the last round of the multilateral agreement, was Quebec a pawn, notably for softwood lumber, and also in supply management and the many breaches there, and now aluminum? I'm wondering if my colleague knows why Quebec is constantly a pawn in the negotiations between our government and other countries. The honourable member for Desnethé, Churchill River.
Thank the member for the question. I don't think it's just Quebec that was a pawn in the negotiations for some of these deals. I think there's many industries and there's many individual players in Canada that have maybe been used as pawns in this agreement. So,
Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the things I'm very pleased about with this new trade agreement is that it's eliminated the investor-state dispute settlement provisions in a trade agreement, which give corporations extraordinary rights and powers to challenge our laws and policies that are put in place to protect citizens, to protect our environment, and protect workers. We'd just like to ask the member opposite whether he would like to see investor-state removed from the other trade agreements that we've signed historically, and whether he would like to see us renegotiate some of these trade agreements to get rid of this anti-democratic measure that was in NAFTA and will be removed from the CUSMA.
Honourable member for Desnethé, Missinippi, Churchill River.
I'd like to thank the member for his question. I would suggest to you, Mr. Speaker, that we need to ensure that all businesses in Canada have the ability to prosper. In my file with the Indigenous Services file, one of the things we're looking for is partnerships between Indigenous communities and industry, allowing Indigenous people to be part of the private sector, to be part of the market so that they can create economic activity that will help them take care of the needs, the very demanding needs in their First Nation communities.
We're just going to go to resuming debate here in a moment. Just a comment, though, for honourable members, and I see many members standing up to participate in the time for questions and comments. I encourage honourable members to continue doing that, and eventually we will get to you. I will do our best to apportion the opportunities to speak in this regard.
I appreciate that members want to rise to participate in the period for questions and comments. Every time I open up questions and comments, please rise, and eventually we will get to you and recognize your participation. Resuming debate.
The
The honourable member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte.